Welcome back, guys, to CFL Central, CFL content for the fans, by the fans, and we have our Week 11 review. And it's funny because my team didn't exactly have a good week. However, I shouldn't be talking as I am friends with the guy named Rick, who's on the other end of the screen, who's a fan of the loss to the Edmonton Elks by 2 touchdowns, Hamilton Tiger Cats, and that is our first game of the week. We get to start off with a glorious victory and a horrendous defeat. Oh boy,
Okay,
the Ticats were on a slippery slope and they are falling down. Yikes.
I will say this.
Yep.
To my defense. Can we just pack Legio up now and just ship him off to the nearest airport?
What did I say?
The guy missed
What did I say?
3 to 4. The guy missed 3 to 4.
He missed 4 kicks.
Field goals.
Oh, field goals. Oh,
plus the extra points.
I was about to say, including the extra point, I know he missed at least 4. And
yeah,
I don't mean to be that guy.
So right there.
But there was a guy in the CFL Discord who was telling me that I was nuts when I said that I am more of a Sergio Castillo than Mark Legio fan. And this game, you know the thing is it's not at all that Mark Legio is not capable of being a good kicker. It's not. Mark Legio, I've seen some incredible kicks out of Mark Legio. The problem is that he cannot play under pressure. He can't. He has no clutch in the sense of the pressure is on whenever you're playing against the Elks. It is. Not because it's a difficult game, but because if you lose that game, there are implications of, you lost to the Elks? Or that's the thing. He's got no finish.
I have 2 things to say. First off, I'm okay to lose at home and not in Edmonton because that would have been a lot worse to lose in Edmonton and then lose at home. Secondly, I know everyone's going to say would have, could have, should have. However, had McAllister's touchdown not been called back because, once again, stupid freaking penalties and those three field goals and that extra point, we would have beaten the Elks. I don't care how anyone looks at it.
Legio just didn't blow his leg out before the game started or the hell happened.
And the thing is, we always get penalties.
But that's the thing as well. It's one of those things where that is an important woulda, coulda, shoulda. However, at the same time, it's one of those things where, if your kicker decided to kick, but he didn't. That was the thing. There was nothing to bail him out. And it was one of those things where when you got that run, you took an undisciplined penalty. I get it. I've been on the receiving end of that too, but it's one of those things where it's as much as there's those things that where little things could have made the difference in terms of you guys winning the game, and it costed you guys, it did. And so it's one of those things where I guess now as a team they got to address those issues.
Here's my other theory here's the other theory that I have, that Coach O has lost the locker room. Okay, let me just paint this picture for you.
Let's hear it.
Second, and I think what was it, 3? 9 seconds left. Do you go for points or do you try at least once for a touchdown and then kick the field goal on second and 3, second and 2, something like that? I can't remember what it was.
Go for the touchdown.
This
field goal.
This fool, the one that has lost the locker room, decides at 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3. Oh, with 9 seconds left, let's go for the points and not go for the touchdown.
Well, and you know what concerns me when I see a play like that, and I get it in the sense of going for the safe play, taking the points, but it's one of those things where you have to have a little bit of trust in your squad that you're capable of doing that, capable of pulling off that play quickly. And so it's one of those things where worst case scenario, if the time's clicking down, just throw it out of bounds. You still got another down. You can go for the kick then.
And that's the thing where it gets me okay, even if you're 3rd and 1 and you decide to punt it, that goes to show that you do not have confidence in your team.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
no, and that's why I'm a firm believer that because I remember I saw a thing of where someone was 3rd and 1 on the 1 yard line and they kicked a field goal. And I remember I saw that. I was like, that is the most disgusting play I've ever seen in football, and that should never happen.
Okay,
If you
so
don't
here's my
think
other
you can get 1 fucking yard.
here's my other question is when you get a touchdown, you normally kick from what? The 10?
Yeah.
15?
Well, I think the ball's on the 10, you kick from the 15,
Okay. So,
I
if
believe.
we get when Butler got that touchdown,
Yep.
again, my whole theory, we cannot score more than one bloody freaking touchdown a game. And this was my problem. And apparently it's not Milanovic's fault. It's the fact that the coach has no hope in this team anymore whatsoever.
Well, there's that,
But
and
anyways,
let's be a little bit fair to Scott Milanovic here. He is dealing with Tommy Condell's playbook, and so it's one of those things where, first off, it's not a great playbook, as that playbook brought them absolutely nothing this year. So there's problem number one. Can he make some tweaks to that? Obviously. Can he add a few plays? Yes, he can. But there's a very limited amount that you can do when you're doing this mid-season, as opposed to having that off-season, having that preseason, prepping this new team and building this offensive identity around this offensive playbook that you have. He's not able to do that. He's essentially having to do someone else's homework. So it's one of those things where you can't really expect it to run efficiently in that regard. So there's that. And secondly, it's not even just that he can't make changes. He has to get a full grasp of it himself. And this is the very first game with Scott Milanovic. So it's one of those things where it normally takes a coach at least one game, just to get a grasp of things and to not only see the plays that Tommy Condell has, but see which ones of Tommy Condell's that he likes, which one he doesn't. And so he's got to cycle through them, which means that he's going to see those failures. And he did.
Yeah.
And it led to the Ticats only being able to get 1 touchdown this game.
One more comment before the few key notes of Edmonton that I wanted to throw is
make it nice and quick because we do have all the other games to get to.
Oh, but yeah, what I was going to say was Trey Ford finally showed up.
Absolutely.
Dunbar finally showed up.
Absolutely.
And our horrible offensive line makes Edmonton's defense look good with 8 sacks.
Actually, I actually got a message from former Elks punter Michael Domagala about look at Trey Ford go. He was rolling that game, and so it was glad to see that even some former teammates of his were so happy to see the success from it. And it was one of those things for Edmonton where they were doing the Cornelius thing. It just wasn't working, and they needed to cycle around. Probably against, I bet you Chris Jones was held at gunpoint. He's like the Daryl Sutter of football in that regard. But it worked for them, and Trey Ford is now the way to go in Edmonton.
The thing that kills me about this is so this is my one last point. If started with Trey Ford earlier,
yep,
they probably would have had a better season.
Yeah, you're cutting out, by the way. Just check your internet. We're gonna keep it rolling, but just make sure to check up on that. But yeah,
that was my thought on this.
That's all good. But yeah, we'll get into the next one here, which is the Winnipeg Blue Bombers versus the Calgary Stampeders. So this game, the Bombers would win, but we didn't play well. We didn't. First half sucked. And that's all I'm going to say about the first half. It sucked. I didn't get to see all of it. From what I saw, it was pretty shit. Second half, wasn't too pleased with it either. And honestly, it was one of those things we outscored them in the third, got outscored in the fourth. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't crazy. The thing is that I don't know what it is about Drew Brown, but why is it that Drew Brown plays better when he has to go in? Drew Brown is the opposite of Mark Leggio. He plays his best when he's in clutch, when he has to go in, when Caleros is out, and Caleros has said, this whole game up. He's built this lead. Or maybe Caleros has been fighting this whole game, and we just need a few more points. Drew Brown gets it done. He gets it done. He gets it done in clutch. He did against the Red Blacks at the start of last season, and he did this last game. However, like this last game before the Stamps. But the thing is that when he plays a full game, he's just okay. He doesn't have the consistency through a full 60 that Zach Collaros has. So it was what it was in that regard. So when it comes to this, actually one thing I had a bit of an issue with, I actually have a complaint for a man I love on this team, Coach O'Shea. I had an issue with something that Coach O'Shea did. So Coach O'Shea, wonderful, fantastic coach. When there's 2 minutes left and you're about to take a time count violation and you have both of your timeouts, why the flying fuck don't you play one of them to stop us from getting a penalty? Like, I understand holding on to one so that way you can do a coach's challenge. I get that. 2 minutes left, you don't need both timeouts. At that point, you got to use it to stop that penalty. Because it was one of those things where we had one where we were we're second and 2. Let's get it going, boys. Not so much anymore. We can't do it. And I was just literally, it's funny. As much as I was annoyed, my brother was downstairs with me, and anyone who watches the Nolan Hockey Podcast will realize this. By the way, anyone who watches the Nolan Hockey Podcast, make sure to, even anyone who doesn't, some videos on the Ahsoka TV show are going to be coming out on that. Sorry, I had to do a little bit of a plug for that. The Star Wars Ahsoka TV show reaction, episodes 1 and 2. It's going to be great. It's probably already out by now by the time this video is up. But Zach was just losing his mind. Zach, literally, I'm in the basement, and I was just like, what are we doing here? And all I hear is, fucking timeout, Mike! Fucking timeout! and then the ref threw the flag and, fuck! It just walked away. So, Mr. Zachary
Honestly,
Nolan was not pleased.
I'm not going to lie. Your receivers did not show up whatsoever. I think the top receiver had 50 points. Out of all,
that's a combination of a few things though. That's partially on the receivers, but then that's also partially on Drew Brown going 17 for 27. That's hardly above 50%.
This was the worst. No offense to you guys or Calgary, but this was the worst game of the week. This was a snooze fest.
As a game as a whole?
Yeah.
I was about to say, because that Elks Hamilton game was exciting. It wasn't the worst performance by a team. It just was the worst game as a whole. That's fair.
Had Paradis never missed those 2 field goals, but he would have set a new record for most field goals in a game.
But he didn't. He did what people do against the Bombers, and that is hit the uprights. Sorry, Cody.
But the thing is, Jake Mayer got no touchdowns.
Yep.
Drew Brown got no touchdowns. And I'm sitting there in the CFL Discord chat room doing the play-by-play.
But do you know who's the beauty? The one guy you can always count on,
Mr. Houston.
Woohoo! Bro. And I love the title I used for my Bomber vid. It's a me, Demario, which I thought that was very clever. Demario Houston has 7 interceptions. The entire Calgary Stampeders have 6.
I will say though,
oh boy,
that whole team must have got down on their hands and knees and prayed to the almighty Houston God. Because if it was not for that,
they said, Houston,
you guys would have been
they said, Houston, we have a problem. And then Houston answered it.
You guys would have been losers this week.
But we weren't. And so you can
I honestly think you guys,
Ellen Hamilton.
I think that you guys losing to Calgary is a lot worse than BC losing to Saskatchewan.
No. You want to know why? Because we were without Zach Collaros, and BC losing to Saskatchewan, they lost it when they had fucking Dolagala. They had Dolagala.
I mean, I'd like
as their starting quarterback. Oh boy, oh boy. And you
Hey,
know what's funny? Is that now it's looking like, honestly, if Saskatchewan plays like the way they did that game, like, first off, Saskatchewan, they're not top shit, but I can see them now being ahead of Calgary. Like, seriously, because it's one of those things where it's like Saskatchewan is performing better with nothing than Calgary is with everything. So I'll give them that. I give Saskatchewan a lot of heat these past few weeks, and I've gotten a little bit of backlash for it. Fair enough. I'll be the one to say it, but and a lot of it was warranted. I'm not going to take it back, but it's one of those things where with this game they did prove something. But that's the end of the Bombers Stamps game. Let's first go into the Alouettes Red Blacks game. Ottawa, you got Caleb Evans. Like, guys. Like, I don't know what it is, but Montreal is so amazing at being mediocre and just slightly beating teams. Like, there's nothing on this Montreal team that is that impressive. It's just that they just seemingly can just squeak past guys all the time. And it's not me saying they're bad. It shows that they have clutch. It really does, which is important. But it's such a strange thing because, I mean, if we're looking at this game, Montreal got more than half their points in the fourth quarter alone. They went 0, 3, 7, then 15. And so it was one of those things where they got it done in just a short amount of time at the end.
And this goes to show my theory that every team has two people to depend on. They had Mac, who had 9 catches for 116 yards.
Yep.
And Tyler Sneed went 7 for 7 for 98 yards. That's, if you don't shut down their top 2 receivers, that's the problem.
No, that's true. Sneed had a solid game. And even Evans, he went 24 for 36, so good performance by him. He had 333 throwing yards there for the Alouettes, so good piece him. Dustin Crum went 14 for 19, so not terrible there, but only got 130 there. Rushing, it was Williams and then Crum, but only like 64 is your top rushing yards, 41 for your top receiving. It's not the kind of numbers offensively that you want to be getting if you're the Ottawa Red Blacks in this game. So it's one of those things where it seems like the novelty of the Red Blacks and the Dustin Crum, the Crum back, has kind of started to wear off, and it's just not what it was when they had that wonderful victory over my Winnipeg Blue Bombers. It's died out, and it's that momentum they've had. They just don't have it anymore. So it's one of those things where they're not going to – it's most likely they don't drop below Hamilton. I think that Hamilton, as much as it's going to hurt you, I think Hamilton misses out on a playoff spot. But it's not anything that they can – there's not much really to keep that pedal moving. Although you could also argue that with Hamilton having one of the most humiliating loss of the week, that is all the more motivation to completely turn the season around, which is, I mean, if there's anything you can hope for as a Ticats fan, I have to imagine that's that.
So the only thing is we have the tiebreaker versus Ottawa. So if Ottawa wants to make the playoffs, they have to win more games than us.
That's fair. So what do you think about this Alouettes Red Blacks game?
Shout out to former Bomber, Mr. Pigram,
yes,
who had
Tyrell
30
Pigram.
rushing yards and 2 touchdowns.
I was glad to see that.
He is the nice.
Red Blacks used him exactly the way that you should.
I don't like. There's the thing is with Ottawa's, because Ottawa's defense only had 4 sacks. Like they're
only 4 sacks because when it's the Alouettes, you're expecting at least 6.
I am, but I mean, like Ottawa's that is like the Alouettes' kryptonite is their own offensive line. It really is, and that's the thing. It's not that the D line for Ottawa isn't bad, but if they're any other D line in the league,
they're exploiting that so much more. Like, as much as I shit on Saskatchewan's D-line would just be running circles around the O-line of the Montreal Alouettes.
Like, I mean, until Ottawa's receivers step up to the plate, I honestly don't see them making the playoffs over us.
It really depends on the way that Hamilton bounces back from this loss. Whether that's to motivate to really turn the whole season around, or just kind of crumble.
Like, let's be honest here, Carter. Do
Yep.
you honestly think we're gonna beat BC this week? Like, let's be realistic here. We got to get past this BC game and then think of what we can do.
BC has shown that they play better after they lose. They get pissed off.
However, I will say though, as BC is lucky that Vernon Adams came back in the game after that injury.
Oh yeah, no, they definitely
had Adams
are.
have gone down, it could have been a lot worse.
Let's get to that. We got the BC Lions versus the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Riders win 34-29. And I was so conflicted this game because, like, I always want the Riders to lose, but it also would be kind of convenient if they won that game because that means that the Bombers are that much closer to having home field advantage in the West Final, which is what I want. And it's funny because Saskatchewan wins this game. BC, they just obliterate Saskatchewan in the fourth quarter, but it's just not enough as the Riders play a pretty consistent game. They get a good 7 in the first quarter, 17-10 in the second quarter to put them up by quite a bit. Get a good 7-0 in the third quarter, and then they get blown out 16-3 in the fourth. But it was one of those things where it was good performance by Schaefer Baker. He was a good performer here for the Riders in this game. Although even him, like he had 3 receptions for 36 yards. Emilius definitely stepped up, getting over 100 receiving yards on only 5 receptions. Got himself a touchdown as well as Stearns. And Schaefer Baker got a touchdown as well. Dolagala had a mid performance, but some Saskatchewan fans can realize this. CFL Commish on Instagram being one of them. But then there's some that think that he's the moons, the stars, and the rainbows. I'm sorry, he's not. And then you had Dominic Davis, who did basically absolutely nothing. And then Vernon Adams Jr., who got 455 yards. 455 yards. Went 26 for 41. So in terms of your completion ratio, okay, he got almost 500 yards. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So I'd say solid game from Mr. Vernon Jr.
And I mean, not only that, had Hatcher had 6 more yards, you would have had 3 wide receivers
over 100 yards,
getting 100 yards
and a touchdown each. Although you know what the thing is, what you're gonna, I want you to look, okay? Take a guess of what I'm holding in my hand. I am holding the BC Lions running game in my hand.
Because there was no running.
There's nothing. Nothing. It was predictable, which is why, that's the reason why I didn't say Vernon Adams Jr. had a great game. He threw 455 because that's all he could do. That's all they could do this game. They could only throw because they didn't have that running game. It wasn't rolling this game. So they got to figure that out moving forward because they need a consistent running game to go up with that excellent receiving core. Even Katoy, he got 3 receptions, got himself 43 yards out of that. Solid performance. McInnes was okay, but Katoy, Hatcher, Whitehead, and Hollins all had excellent games, and this is all without Dominic Rhymes. So it's one of those things where the receiving core of the Lions is one of the best in the league, but that doesn't really mean anything if you're just relying on that and you can't run the ball at all. It's hard to win a game without running the ball. It is. So that's kind of how I am about it.
I know this is going to be for another video, but I just saw something interesting for this upcoming week.
Oh, yeah?
Spoiler. Ottawa plays at Edmonton. So, is this the week that Edmonton ends that losing streak and just trade
what the
forward?
best thing about this is that we're gonna cut it off right there, and all you beautiful people are gonna have to tune into that video when it comes out. Cliffhanger, baby, let's do it. Let's do it. We love you, people, and that's why you're going to love us and watch the video. Thank you very much. But make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe if you have not already. Make sure you guys comment down below what you guys thought of this week. Make sure to make fun of Rick, please, and thank you. And we will see you guys next time.